Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to the fourth video in this series of videos making sense of ME, chronic fatigue, and fibromyalgia. So in the first video, we talked about my story and background and the journey of the clinic, and we introduced the idea of the integral approach. We then looked at the stages of recovery. In the last video, we looked at the 7 subtypes. So in this video, I want to talk briefly about why we believe the role of psychology can be so important in ME, chronic fatigue, and fibromyalgia. Now, as I briefly mentioned at the end of the last video, I know this is a sensitive subject. I know this is something where a lot of people have had experiences where people have very ignorantly tried to force ideas around psychology that have been totally inappropriate and totally inaccurate of people's experiences. Having said that, it's also the case that having worked with literally thousands of patients in over 35 countries, one of the things that we've clearly recognized is one of the biggest blocks to recovery is being in what we call the maladaptive stress response. The maladaptive stress response effectively is the state that our nervous system tends to go into, often in response to suffering from an illness where people don't seem to be able to tell us what's wrong with this, why it's wrong with us, how long it's going to last, are we going to relapse again, what should we do about it? All of these kind of uncertainties build into a state where our body goes into the exact opposite state of what it needs to be able to heal. And this maladaptive stress response, and often we don't even recognize we're in that state because it's like we're so used to being in it, but it means that our body is effectively unable to heal and move forward. To link this to the stages of recovery, by the way, we talked about in video 2, this can play out in different ways at different stages of recovery. So for example, at stage 1, one of the reasons why people don't come from stage 1 to stage 2 is their body is stuck in this maladaptive stress response. And also at stage 2, what can happen is that tired and wired is being partly driven by this maladaptive stress response. Equally at stage 3, what we can find is that people are still in some of that state and therefore they're not able to get past this glass ceiling. Now, having said that, although the maladaptive stress response is definitely incredibly important, it isn't the only piece on the psychology side. In addition to dealing with the maladaptive stress response, it's also very important to deal with the subtypes. So if we have, for example, a strong achiever tendency or strong helper tendency, or we have trauma, dealing with those is also very important for all kinds of reasons, which we've talked about in various other videos in various places. It's also particularly important to have support around making sure that as we're in that reintegration phase at stage 3, that we're doing that and navigating that in the best way. So, as I say, there's a lot more that we could say about the psychology approach, and I think the best thing to do is to look at some of the links, some of the videos below, which will give you more of an idea of some of these ideas, some of these principles. There's also a very interesting link to an article which explores where the OHC approach fits with other psychology-based approaches. One of the things I think you may have recognized now in these videos is we have a very big perspective on how we see different things fitting together. And what we've observed is certain psychology approaches like CBT, the lightning process, reverse therapy, EFT, psychotherapy, they tend to target specific pieces. So they tend to target specific things at a certain stage, or they deal with a certain subtype. But we believe that our approach is the only approach that pulls together all of these pieces and takes the best from the different ways of working and puts them together in an integrative way. So if you have any questions about how this may apply to your specific situation, then as I've mentioned before in these videos, having a free 15-minute chat with one of our psychology practitioners will be a great way to get your questions answered. Either if you've done no work on the psychology side, or you've maybe done some of the approaches that I mentioned and they haven't got you where you want to get, we can help you understand that. So in the 5th and final video, I'm going to talk to you a bit more about how we make sense of ME, chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia from a physical and nutritional perspective. So I look forward to talking with you on that video in a couple of days' time.